Names and languages. Moving on from the birth notification form, let's look at how the name now is actually being used to deceive us. Let's start from the beginning. Have a look at this list. I'm going to leave it up for 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Let you just have a look at the names. Have a look. See which one's correct to you. Take a snapshot of it or write the names down, because these are the ways they use the name to deceive us. So let's look at the first one. So at the top we've got Henry. Henry was the first name and was the surname that was given to you on the birth notification form, remember? And that came with the date of birth. Yeah? So the day you was born, you was given your surname. Now that surname, as you see, was written in capital letters by the midwife. Yeah? And this was on the birth notification form. Now, no one gave you that name. It was a name that was attached to the family. So it was the family name. Yeah, it wasn't given to you as an individual name. Okay, so after that, the second date, which was the registration date, was when your mum gave over your forename on the Form 1 particulars of birth form. So your mum gave over the forename, which they see it as the Christian name, but it's not the Christian name. We'll get to that in a minute. But the forename was given over by your mother to the birth registrar. Yeah. Now the birth registrar took the second date from the registration date, which was the forenames, took that and added it to the surname Henry. So now you have Tom, Dick, Henry. Henry's written in capital letters, remember. Tom, Dick is written in uppercase and lowercase because it was your mother writing it. And she wrote it on the particulars of birth form. When that particulars of birth form went over to the registrar, it attached itself to the birth notification form. The birth notification form and the birth particulars form creates the certified copy of an entry, which is known and seen as your birth certificate, but it doesn't say birth certificate on the form anywhere. It may say certificate of birth, which is the first little square one you get. You get 3 different types of birth certificate. We can get into that later. The certified copy of an entry, this is how they would write your name. Tom, Dick, and then Henry, all capitals. From this moment onwards, it's seen as a legal name that has a contract attached to it, because the name Henry is a company name. Yeah, it's seen as an implied company. They've turned you into implied company. The reason for doing this is that contracts in law can only be made between the same kind, corporation and corporation, or sentient being, man and woman, or man and woman, sentient being. You can never have a mixture between a corporation and a living entity, man or woman. A man and woman cannot have a contract with a corporation. It has to be another corporation that has a contract with a corporation. That's why they turn your name into capital letters and degrade you down and allows a corporation to have the same laws as you, because it's all legal. You're not in the law, you're in the legal world. You was placed into the legal world via your particulars of birth form and the birth notification form. You are still in the legal world. You're in there known as a child. And because you're known as a child, that's been placed into United Kingdom Limited. They are your parent now. So anything what happens within the United Kingdom Limited is your home. Yeah, that's what's on your passport, United Kingdom. United Kingdom is a limited company. So you're in a limited company. Any rules or anything that limited company has, you basically have to abide by them. It's like you working for McDonald's. Basically, you got a McDonald's passport because it's a limited company passport. That's all you're carrying. You're still a child. That's why all your names will be written as all capital letters, because it's an implied company that's doing contracts with other companies. And you can't do contracts as a man or a woman. Yeah, you can, but that's doing it with another man or a woman. That means you are a director of your company, and then the other is another director of their company. That means the two directors are men and women, or man and man, or woman and woman, and they're doing the contract. Yeah, but it's not two companies, it's a man and woman, limited companies. Or as we've seen now, that you've got the three names. You've got the first name, birth notification form, which was the surname. Then the second name, which was the forename, came on the particulars of birth, which was given on the registration date. Then the Tom, Dick, Henry is now the name they've placed in one box under the certified copy of an entry known as your birth certificate. Okay, now, because this is made into an implied company, as you get older and you live your life, you go into contracts. Now, the name they will write to you would be Mr. Tom, Dick, Henry. Now, Mr. Tom, Dick, Henry would apply to all the departments that the birth notification form parts went to. Remember, there was 4 parts to the birth notification form in the first video. There was 4 parts. The top part went to the birth registrar. Now, the second part went to the perinatal, the third part went to the health pricing, and the last part stayed at the hospital. Now, all these departments, whether it's for dental, doctor, school, whatever them headings are for, your name will appear like that, Mr. Tom, Dick, Henry, in capital letters in all of these different departments, yeah? Because there's a contract with all these departments with your surname, and it's the same name that is attached to the certified copy of an entry. I hope you're getting this. Okay, as you can see, Mr. has been added in front of the name now, because it's now been entered into United Kingdom Limited. United Kingdom is a limited company. So now your name has been entered into the limited company as an implied corporation doing business within the United Kingdom Limited with other companies. But remember, you're an implied company. Yeah, implied. You don't own the company. Remember, when your mum gave over your name on the particulars of birth form to the birth registrar, she didn't give it to you. She gave it to them. They then gave you the name on a certified copy of an entry. I don't want to go too much off track, but look at it like this. When you buy a car, there's a manufacturing statement of origin what comes with the car. That manufacturing statement of origin goes to the DVLA. The DVLA takes the information off that manufacturing statement of origin and puts it on their logbook and sends you their logbook. They don't give you the manufacturing statement of origin, which they should do. That's why when you look at your logbook, it says you are the registered keeper. You're not the owner. You don't own the car. You're just the registered keeper of the vehicle. And the vehicle is only the registration plates. Now it's up to you if you want to use that, because if you're using that, you're paying the administration costs and everything else to use that document and whatever else it's got tied to it. And as remember, with the certified copy of an entry, at the bottom in the bold letters it had warning, this is not a certificate of identity. Yeah, it's not a form of identity, so just remember that. So also with the Mr. Tom Dick Henry, you've actually got two single names there and an acronym. So you know what an acronym is, and you know what two single names are. Two single names start with a single name, a name starts with a capital letter. So Tom, then there's Dick, then there's Henry. Yeah. So as you can see underneath, you've got three single names, which is Tom, Dick, and Henry. There's no hyphens or anything else. Join the names together to make them joined as one name. So Tom Dick should have a hyphen in between to join them together to make one name. Yeah, so it's Tom Dick and then the separation of Henry, the surname. So there's three single names there. As you see above with Tom Dick Henry, you've got two single names and then you've got an acronym, because you can only write capital letter words in two languages. One of them is sign language, one of them is English, but if you're using English, it has to be an acronym, and it can only be an acronym, abbreviation and symbols. Yeah, we'll come to that in a moment. Now, underneath the three single names, the next one down, in all capitals, Mr. Tom Dick Henry, you got everything there as an acronym. Everything is an acronym there. So every single letter has to be identified with its own word, if you get that. So for example, a lot of you might know the word bog off, buy one get one free, or you might know the word AWOL, absent without leave, or you might know the word PIN, personal identification number. But all these words will be written in capital letters because it's an acronym. And each initial letter would have its own word. So they're just taking the initial letter to put the initial letters together. Buy one get one free, bog off. Yeah, we're taking all the first letters, put them together and created a new word, and the new word is bog off, for example. Okay, so the acronyms here is basically how can they need to explain what the acronym is. Now, to the legal world, they see this language as legalese. Now, legalese isn't a language. It might be a language for the law society, but it's not a language for the everyday living man and woman in common law. Legalese is for the legal jurisdiction profession. Now we get dragged into that via the certified copy of an entry. Yeah, but we can get to that later on. So going down now to the next one. Here we have Mr. Tom Dick Henry. Now, as you can see, Tom and Dick, they have capital letters. Now, anyone would expect, yeah, that's normal. Yeah, that would be your name. But is it? Okay, let's have a look what this is. Actually, Tom Dick is actually written there as a double barrel surname. If you look at a double barrel surname, the two surnames start with capital letters. So what you've got here, you've got your forename as an actual double barrel surname. Then for your surname, Henry, you've got it written as an acronym. Yeah? Look at that again. Tom-Dick. Both Tom and Dick have capital letters. That's a double barrel surname. So it could be Henry Tom Dick. Yeah? Now, underneath that, we've got the same thing, but all in capital letters. Now, the difference between the lowercase version above and this version is that this version's all in capital letters. Now, anything written in all capital letters with a hyphen in between it, joining them two words together, is actually sign language. And that's written in the Chicago Manual of Style, 16th edition, under section 11.147, Romilly Stewart and Rohan Lorian points this out. If you look under the section which they don't talk about, 11.1.49, 2 sections under, you'll see finger spelling. And finger spelling explains what it looks like. Yeah, and you will see that the name is written with a hyphen between each of the names or each of the letters to join them together. That's sign language. Yeah, okay. The next one down, Tom, Dick, Henry. Okay, this one doesn't have the Mr. in front of it. So this can only be seen as an implied company or an acronym. 3 first names, again, but it could be seen as an implied company because all companies are written with capital letters. It doesn't matter about the language for a moment. The language is either acronym or sign language, but here it's an acronym. So all companies are fictitious, so they can be written in a fictitious way, which is legalese. Yeah, legalese is legal and legal is fiction. Yeah, it's not law, it's of law. Yeah, it's not law. So Tom, Dick, Henry, all in capital letters, is an implied company and or an acronym. Now, underneath this, we have the proper private limited company that's expressed to the world. The implied company isn't expressed to the world. The private limited company is expressed to the world. So all other companies have to pay attention to this limited company and has to have a contract with this limited company. With the implied company, they don't have to have a contract with the implied company because the implied company belongs to the United Kingdom Limited, who your mother gave the name over to in the first place, which made you the child implied company. Now, with the child has Mr. or Mrs. at the front of its name. Whether it's written in uppercase or lowercase or not, or in capitals, there will always be a Mr. in front of the name. Now, when the name is turned into a limited company, the Mr. and Mrs. is not the child anymore. It's an owned entity by an owner, a living entity. So a living entity has to own the company. Yeah, it can't be not owned by a ghost. Yeah, but we can get into this company stuff later and discuss it in a different video. Yeah, so you're starting to get the picture. So now, the limited company, the private limited company, is the Tom, Dick, Henry Limited. Now, there has to be a director to that. Now, a director can be and is a superintendent. Now, if your birth certificate, certified copy of an entry, has a superintendent registrar on it, that is then a company document. Because your limited company, if you are a limited company, if you're the director, if you go and look up the word director in the legal dictionary, a director is a superintendent. So a superintendent is a director. Yeah? So a director is looking after the company. Superintendent's on your birth certified copy of an entry, so-called birth certificate. Director, superintendent. Director, superintendent. Who's running your company for you? That's the question. The implied company anyway, not the private limited company. Now, Tom, Dick, Henry underneath that has got Tom hyphen Dick and then Henry. So here automatically we see that it's sign language they're using for the first 2 names, because they join the 2 together with the hyphen, and that's sign language, the way it's written. Also, David Wynne Miller would write like this as well. He would write all the words with hyphens in between. That's sign language he's writing, but he hasn't told everybody he's writing in sign language. But everybody knows it as David Wynne Miller's technique. Yes, it's a technique, but it's not a language. The language he's writing is sign language. Go and look up Chicago Manual of Style, 16th edition or 17th edition, and you'll find it under foreign languages. Okay, so Tom, Dick, Henry, underneath this one is just 3 single names. Tom, Dick, and Henry. Whether the Henry is a surname or whatever, they're still 3 single names because they all starting with capital letters. Yeah, it's not your name. None of these are your names. Okay, the Tom hyphen Dick Henry, again, is a double barrel surname and a surname, proper surname, written in uppercase and lowercase proper English grammar. But the first Christian, well, the forenames Tom Dick is written as, which is a double barrel surname, because they're both starting with the capital letters. Yeah. Okay. Underneath this is T.D. Henry. Now, initials can be used as a Christian name, but what do they stand for? That's my question. You could be Tom, Dick, Henry, yes, but the TD could stand for Tony Daniel, or Tamara Dickinson, or Tallulah Davis. Do you see? That's the thing about it. So whatever the names, whatever initials are put down, again, you can't see it as you. Remember, we are the ones who are ignorant here. We take on this and we look at it and we don't decipher it for ourselves, and we think it's for us, but it's not. And that's why we get ourselves into this trouble. Now, the last one at the bottom here is Tom Dick Henry. Now, even though that's written correctly, it's still written as the legal name. Because remember, the name was not given to you in the beginning. It was given to the system. So you can have, your name can be written as Tom Dick Henry as a legal name. And a legal name is a Christian name and a surname put together. But the only problem they've got is that all of these names are using a forename. They're not using a Christian name. Remember, the Christian name comes and you get a lawful certificate with the name. Your Christian name comes with a certificate, and it's a lawful certificate. It's a certificate given, a name given in baptism or not in baptism. Yeah, so it's the name has been given a certificate lawfully. So your baptism name, and now that brings us to the third date of birth, which where you get baptized, you get your Christian name now is the name what's been christened basically and baptized and given to you on that date. Remember, the date earlier on in number 2 at the top with Tom Dick, that was given over by your mother as a forename to the birth registrar on a particular sort of birth legal form. It wasn't a lawful document. Your Christian name or your forename wasn't given over to. Your Christian name wasn't given over, lawfully. At the bottom, your Tom Dick Henry would have been given over lawfully on your baptism certificate, or not in baptism certificate. Remember, it's the certificate of name. Whether it was in baptized or whether it was not baptized, it's a certificate of name. It's a lawful document for your Christian name, your first name. Yeah, so pay attention to that, because you using the certified copy of an entry or any other document before your baptism certificate means you're using a dead entity, sinful name. It hasn't been christened yet. From your birth, from your born date, from the birth notification form, it hasn't been christened. So pay attention to that. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for now, but we'll get back into some of this later.